How are you? It's me again. I know you may be getting bored of seeing this mug. You'll be seeing a little less of it soon because I'm starting to look like Father Time, quite appropriate for New Year's. So the beard is getting a trim later on today, and I'm getting a haircut. So this video, I wanted to chat a little bit about money and what you can expect generally, because I'm going to be talking about my experience with my airline. You've probably guessed who I work for, because I think I let it slip on my first video. But I'm not going to say who it is because I really don't want to be their spokesperson. They don't want me to be their spokesperson. So everything I say is on me, about me, and my experience, not my airline. So if I haven't said that before, there you go. So money, there's a few things we should talk about first before we talk about money, and there's a few definitions, which you probably know of because you've probably been researching airlines as much as I did before getting the job. So the hours that were blocked and hours that were credited. Block hours are hours typically that you work during a flight. For our airline, it's block time is when you pull away from the airport until you arrive at the other airport. Credit would be any time that we are on duty, but not technically working. So if we're deadheaded from Vegas to Chicago to start a trip, or during part of a trip, we're credited those hours. So we get paid for those times, but they're not part of our block time. I hope that makes sense. Other ways we could get credit is we do have a union in our airline, and if crew scheduling does something that's against my contract or they break our contract, and I usually have a copy of my contract on me, and I'll tell you as a new flight attendant, get to know your contract. If you don't have a contract with a union, I don't know what to tell you. I really like having a union because there were a couple of things that they messed up on this month, and I filed a ticket with our union and I got 4 hours pay. In December, when I didn't fly a lot, I'll take that money. So that those 4 hours that I got are added to my soft credit. So I get block hours and credit. I hope that made sense. Per diem is another word, a new phrase I had never heard before. Per diem is a certain amount of money we get per hour we're away from the airport, our home base, our domicile. So my airline gives me $2.25 an hour for all the time that we're away from our base on a trip. And that adds up. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it certainly does add up. Anything else you should know in terms of definitions, it'll come to me. So in December, I did not fly a lot. It was a quiet month. November was also very quiet for me, but December was pretty quiet. Some of my coworkers really love moving their movables around to add to their guaranteed days off so they can have a legal space that's large enough for them to fly a 3 or a 4 day trip. And they'll go through calisthenics to get those trips. And occasionally I'll try that. It's rarely ever successful for me, so there's not a lot of motivation for me to move my movables around. But occasionally I pick up a trip. October I flew more than I've ever flown before, but December is not one of those months that I was chasing after trips. I also should have mentioned minimum. Each airline offers you a minimum, not offers, guarantees you a minimum number of hours that they'll pay you for a month. My airline guarantees me 72 hours a month on reserve. When you hold a line and you drop a trip, you dropped a trip, you won't get the money. But you also can pick up trips and you have more flexibility when you have a line. But on reserve, I'm guaranteed 72 hours of pay a month, which doesn't sound like a lot, and it really isn't. When I started, I was getting $20.22 a month. Every May for 5 years, our contract gives us a tiny bump every May. So that May, I started in April. In May, I got a little teeny bump to $20.44. And then when I got off probation, At 6 months, I got a $2 and about a $2 raise. So I make a little bit more than $22 an hour right now at 6 months. In a year, my year is March. When I'm released to the line April 2nd or April 1st, I'll get a raise that brings me just under $25. And in May, I'll get that little bump that will just knock me right over $25 an hour. So while I may not work for a legacy carrier at the first year for me, I'm going to be making a fair hourly wage for this industry. And I'm very happy with that. And I love my airline. If I haven't said it 10 times, whatever, I am really off tangent. I wanted to talk about money. But these are some things you should know for the context of what I'm going to tell you. So those 72 hours are divided in half. 36 hours for the first pay period of the month, and then 36 hours for the second pay period of the month, okay? So multiply 22 change. I use 22. Multiply 22 by 36. That gets you about $792. So that's my average pay for those 36 hours for one pay period. So the two paychecks we get, the 30th or the last of the month is just the 36 hours. So that's going to be my paycheck for the most part on my second paycheck of the month, minus taxes, union dues, insurance, things like that. But so it's not an enormous paycheck. That second paycheck, $792 pre-tax. Oh. But the first paycheck of the month, that 36 hours, we also get for that paycheck our per diem for that prior month, I think. I didn't fly a lot last month. I really didn't fly very much. So I was away from base last month for 117 and a half hours. That's not a lot. I didn't fly very much. That was 6 trips. And that was a combination of mostly turns and what was supposed to be a 4-day trip. It wasn't a lot. So my per diem added up to about $264. I'm going to add that $264 to the $792, and that'll get you a little over $1,000 and $1,050 for that paycheck on the 15th, and that's the big paycheck. So this month I'm really suffering. I want to say October's paycheck, the same paycheck, was $1,500, $1,600. So that per diem really makes a giant difference. So I want to fly as much as I can. This month I just wasn't able to pick up a trip. I'm pretty junior, but it's a whole complicated mess. One day I'll really figure out the exact science of picking up trips, but so far I'm okay. So this month, for December, I probably earned about $1,850 for the month. And that is before taxes. That's before health insurance premiums. That is before my union dues. I'll pause there and let you digest that number. That's not a lot of money. I am 48 years old. I'm 48 years old, not used to, living on such a small income. But, all right, so I told you, last month of this, I'll be getting, for December, about $1,850. My rent is $525 a month. My renter's insurance is about $20. My electric bill is probably going to be $20 this month. My cell phone and all of the things I have added to it with T-Mobile is $140. So I didn't do that math, but if you want to look at, deduct that from what I'm going to make in December, It's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money left over. So, and I have horrible spending habits. I have horrible spending habits. My for fun, I'll go to TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Target, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but I'll tell you that stuff adds up. And I pretty much furnished my apartment. I won't even tell you how much money I spent. And I have some credit card debt, not a lot, but so the weight of financial insecurity does get a little exhausting. It will pick up soon. I'll be flying a lot more. I want to say probably by March, I'll probably get a line or a relief line. So I'll be making a little bit more money and have the ability to drop and pick up a little more easily. But I don't want to say that this is the worst part I've ever been in my life financially. I'm actually quite comfortable. So I told you how much I'll be making. I told you how much I have to pay out each month. That doesn't include groceries. So I don't eat out a lot, and I really don't eat in the airport very often anymore, because I'll tell you, a value meal at Burger King in the Las Vegas airport is like $14. No joke, no joke. It's like $8 in Atlanta. But I cook at home. This morning, it's January 2nd. Since I was working yesterday on the 1st, I figured this morning I would make a kick-butt breakfast to start off the new year. And all I had in the house was a box of pancake mix, some spices. I had a little maple syrup left over and some cane sugar. So in a saucepan, I put some water, sugar, maple syrup, nutmeg, cinnamon, a little bit of salt, and a little pepper for some heat. And I made a light caramel sauce, and I cooked an apple that I got from a layover this weekend. I chopped that up and I threw that in the caramel. I made a stack of pancakes. You can't see my belly right now. I hope you can't. You probably can't because it's so distended. I made 3 really good pancakes, and I topped those pancakes with my apple and caramel thing with a cup of tea. And I'll tell you, that probably cost me $1, besides the apple, $1 or $2 to make. And it was so good. I do eat a lot of cereal, but I'm broke. But I eat well. I do eat well. For dinner tonight, I'm gonna have some leftovers. I made a tomato cream sauce with ziti, inspired by Fierceness. I know I mentioned her before, but I watched one of her cooking videos, and she made a tomato sauce and threw cream in there and all sorts of stuff, and it was fantastic. I made it a little different, but I made that. I have 4 meals out of that, and I'll tell you, that probably cost me $3 to make. So there's ways of cooking and preparing your food that's healthy, as long as you don't eat as much as I do. And that's super, super cheap. It's so cheap. I do get my protein mostly because I'm going to the gym more often. I'm going to the gym after this because I ate all those pancakes. I get my protein mostly from yogurt and eggs. I eat a lot of eggs. I make little miniature quiches in muffin pans because they're awesome in my lunch bag, and they're easiest to pop in my mouth and eat. But it's possible to live frugally. Now I'm going to share a little, if you're still watching this, thank you very much. A little story time. I wasn't going to share this until after you guys got to know me a little bit more, but so this is going to be where I become a little less sexy. If I was even sexy in the first place. Before getting this job, I was living in Florida for a couple years. I was trying to live as an artist. I'm a potter. In one of my videos about going to training, I talked about these little bowls, pottery bowls that I made from the remnants of clay that's left on a wheel after you cut something off that didn't work. So I'm a potter, or one day when I grow up, I'll be a potter. And I was living in Florida trying to live as an artist with a new relationship that was a long distance relationship. They were also Potters. The relationship died 90 days in. Apparently, I'm not that easy to live with. Trying to live as an artist, working in a pottery warehouse, that is one of my favorite jobs ever, for 30 hours a week, for $9.25 an hour, or $9 an hour. I was more broke than I am now. And when the relationship ended, I ended up in a room in this horrible little hole in Tampa. I mean, roaches everywhere. The furniture would shift at night, I'll tell you. It was just, it was awful. And even that little hole that I was living in got to be too expensive for what I was earning. But I didn't want to give up my dream on being a potter. So I had been watching YouTube videos about people living in their vans. I can't believe I'm going to tell you this. Or in their cars. In the country, there are just drifts. I mean, there's a whole huge community of people around the country who have either chosen to live in their vehicles for a sense of adventure, savings, whatever, or those people who were forced into living in their vehicles. I can't believe I'm telling you this, I was living in the back of a 2002 or 2004 Ford Freestar. I am 6'2", almost. I won't tell you how much I weigh. I'm a big person. And I was living in the back of that minivan because I could not afford to pay rent and still try to do what I wanted to do for a living and as an artist. It was a difficult choice, and I really didn't feel like I had a lot of choice. I don't have a large family. Friends and family had given me enough financial support to even get where I was. Things were harder at one point than it even sounded. And then Christmas of last year, and this is kind of falling into how I got this job. Christmas this past year, I was invited by one of my best friends to go up to Atlanta to spend the holidays. And so we went up there, and then we drove up to the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina and spent Christmas Day there. It was mind-bendingly gorgeous. When we came back to Atlanta on the 27th, I was in the back of an SUV on the way to dinner with my friends, and I was applying for jobs because Atlanta had to have better job opportunities. And my friend Steven had offered me to a room in his place in Atlanta. So I applied to Neiman Marcus, Saks, the W Hotel or whatever, anywhere that I could. I've had experience working. I've spent most of my time in luxury retail. And I applied for those jobs. We went for dinner, and I had an interview at Saks, and they offered me a job at Saks Fifth Avenue working in fine jewelry. And that's where I worked in Boston, in Saks in jewelry. I didn't want to stand behind a jewelry counter for decades. I'm gonna cry. I did not want to stand behind a counter selling jewelry that I didn't care about to people who didn't care about me or their jewelry. And so I kept looking for other positions. When I walked out of that interview, there was an email saying from my airline saying, "We'd love to see more of you." Because I had applied to some airlines. "We'd like to see more of you." That was January 10th. I'm gonna cry. January 10th of last year. And we're coming up on that anniversary. January 10th, there was that interview in Fort Lauderdale. I was living in the Tampa, St. Pete area, working. I would sleep in a Planet Fitness parking lot or a grocery store, a 24-hour grocery store. I'd sleep in a parking lot somewhere in my van on a cot. And I would go into Planet Fitness every morning, and I would shower and shave and work out. I've never been in better shape. Homeless, but in great shape. And then I would go to work. In this case, I drove to Fort Lauderdale, where my interview was. I slept in the car in the parking lot, and I went to the gym that morning, 4 a.m., showered, shaved, put my clothes on. I know how to dress. I spent 10 years almost at Neiman Marcus. I know how to dress. And I went to my interview. and I got my CJO. I got my job offer. Conditional job offer. And then my car died on the way back to the Tampa area, but that's another story. So why did I tell you the whole story? Why did I tell you that story? Because I'm an oversharer. I share too much, even if it's uncomfortable. But I wanted to share that story if you're still listening. And it's a very particular group of you that I want to talk to about this. Those people I see on Facebook, for example, who say, what do you mean the airline isn't going to pay for my flight to the interview? What do you mean they're not going to put me up in a hotel for my interview? I'm so special and unique in the world that they should invest in me to have me come down and interview for the job. They're lucky enough that I'm going to go and interview for that job. God bless you for having that attitude. And I really don't mean to be on a rant, but I get so frustrated with people who say, I'm not going to bother applying for this utterly fantastic job and opportunity. I'm not going to bother applying for a job if they're not going to pave my way for the interview or the hotel. If you don't want a job like this, bad enough to invest in a super cheap airline ticket, fly Spirit, Frontier, Allegiant. There's other ultra low airlines around. If you don't want to invest in a super cheap airline ticket, if I lived in Atlanta, and if I lived anywhere within 500 miles, 700 miles of my interview that I was offered, I would rent a car, I would drive there, I'd sleep in my car, I'd go to the gym, 4 a.m., shower and change, go to the interview. If you can't afford a hotel room, or you don't want to invest in a hotel room or your airline ticket to get these wings, fine. Good for you. Go on. I wanted this bad enough that I risked what little I had for this job. So, again, that didn't mean to be a rant, and it kind of came across as one. And it's a little early in my career on YouTube for rants. But I wanted to share my experience with you as an encouragement to risk being super uncomfortable, risk a future that's a little unexpected. That's what you're buying when you get your wings. So, blah, blah, blah. Does he ever stop talking? I wanted to say one last thing about pay. Get off that emotional topic. With my airline, I brought my contract over. So, I'll say 5. Let's say, because 5 years is a good long time at a job. I started off at $20.22 an hour. At 5 years with my airline, I should be making about $32.50 an hour. I'll take it, you know? And by then I'll know how to use soft credit, hard credit, bid for lines that are more hours or whatever. But I'm in this for the long run. This is my last job. Yeah, I'm off on a ramble. Get your wings. Go get these wings. Don't let an airline ticket, a hotel, the cost of a hotel room, don't let these things stop you. Do what you have to do if you want these wings. I had to suffer and be a little uncomfortable. I was already suffering, so it wasn't that difficult. But now, as I've mentioned at the beginning of this video, I'm not making a lot of money. I don't make a lot of money right now. That will come. But I'm making it work. And it's not difficult. And you have help. You have a lot of people on YouTube who can tell you how to survive your first year as a flight attendant. I'll be here for you. You know, if you do want this and don't want to do this alone, talk to me. You know, I'll let you know, as I've already done, I've already overshared. I'll share with you how I make it work as a new flight attendant. And I'm not the only one. YouTube is full of loving, caring flight attendants who vlog really to help you out. We probably like attention too, but. So I'm going to end on this. You have been a saint for watching as long as you have. My tea has already gotten cold. Chai tea, I've never had it. It's okay. Fly safe. As I mentioned, I didn't mention, but I'll ask you to subscribe. That'd be nice. Like the video. And most importantly, make a comment. I would love to hear your experiences as a new flight attendant, or about your fears, your anxieties of becoming a flight attendant, if there are any financial worries. So I'd love to hear those comments. And thank you again. Fly safe, and we'll see you in the air. Bye.